beating her by just 11,000 votes. But according to Real Clear Politics, Joe Biden currently holds a 9-point lead in that state. But the president clearly believes he has a chance at winning Michigan, which is likely why he was there holding that rally in Lansing. And joining us now is the chairwoman of the Michigan Republican Party, Laura Cox. Laura, good to see you. How did that rally go yesterday? How big was it? The weather was just nasty.
Oh, it was so exciting. The enthusiasm is palpable in Michigan for our great president. The weather was terrible. It was cold and rainy and windy, but thousands of people showed up to hear his vision for the next 4 years and to talk about his track record of successes for the people of Michigan and across America.
You know, Laura, Michigan has seen quite a turnout for early voting. The Detroit Free Beacon points this out. 2/3 of Michigan voters will have cast their votes early. But then also an interesting point, they also mentioned that Michigan voters, 1 million absentee ballots are not yet returned as Election Day. How are you feeling about early voting? Are you concerned at all about these absentee ballots?
No, not at all. We encourage people to vote however they feel comfortable. If they want to go to the polls on Election Day, of course, we want them to do that. And if they want to vote by absentee ballot, absolutely, we encourage them to do that as well, however they feel comfortable. The bottom line is we're able to track those absentee ballots so we can keep talking to folks to make sure we get the vote out for the president and Republicans up and down the ballot.
You know, we just talked about it, the 11,000 vote margin of 2016. The president pulling out the squeaker there, and in Wisconsin as well. It was also really tight. He wasn't supposed to win those two states. How tight do you think it's going to be? These polls, like we said, showing Biden with the +9, 52 to 43. I imagine you think it's a lot tighter than that.
Yes, absolutely. You know, the only poll that matters is the poll on Election Day. We feel the president's in a very good place, as well as Republicans like John James are doing great in Michigan. And we're going to continue to fight for each and every vote. And that's why we're working really hard. We've talked to over 8 million voters so far, which is an all-time high for any election in Michigan by the Republican Party. And we're building on that. And it's just going to become much more exciting and energizing as we go through these next 6 days.
Laura, you mentioned John James there in the Senate race, a big Senate race against Gary Peters. Like you mentioned, he's running ahead of the president, 44%. Gary Peters is ahead of him, 50% there. But what do you attribute this to, that he's running ahead of the president and doing so well? And do you think that he'll be able to clinch this race?
Well, you know, John James is an electrifying candidate. Let me tell you, he's a combat veteran, a man of God, a family man. He's a businessman. He's signed both sides of the check. He is exactly what people in Michigan are hungry for. They want a strong conservative voice in Washington, D.C. in the Senate. And John James is exactly the man for that job. Laura,
before I let you go, I've got to ask you real quick. On election night, what's the one district that you're going to be looking at to determine how Michigan will go?
Macomb County and Kent County are the two counties that we're going to follow. Macomb County came in big for the president in 2016. We've been working really hard there. And we know the president's coming back to Michigan again on Friday. The vice president, I'm going to go talk to him here in a little bit in Michigan again. It's very exciting here in Michigan, and the president's going to deliver.
All right, Laura, so good to see you. Good luck in these final few days.
Thank you.
All right. Well, shifting gears to Texas, with 38 electoral votes, the Longhorn State is the second biggest prize in this presidential election. And Trump won Texas in 2016 by 9 points over Hillary Clinton, continuing this trend of Republicans winning the state there, which has happened every year since Ronald Reagan was first elected in 1980, if you remember. And while Trump is still ahead, you know, many Democrats see potential in Texas. The big question is, can they clinch it? With us now, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Texas Republican Party Chairman. Colonel, good to see you.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
All right. What is early voting looking like so far in the state of Texas? We're seeing huge turnouts in other states. Are you seeing the same there?
Yeah, absolutely. Texas is leading the nation with early voting. We were at about 7.2 million as of early Monday morning. And the great thing with 7.2 million early votes, that's in person and also some mail-in. We see Republicans right now with a 6.3% advantage over Democrats. And that's not including the unaffiliated voters, the independent voters. So we feel really good going into this final week of early voting. And of course, next week is the big day.
Well, sir, we've got this. We've got a poll here that shows the president at 47 to 43 for Texas, winning 47 to 43. You got a 4-point margin there. I'm just curious, where is the campaign? Where are you guys putting the energy right now? Are you focusing mostly on the urban areas, the city centers? And have you seen any of this information? We talked about a poll last week that showed the possibility that the president could get somewhere around 50% of the Hispanic vote, which would just be an incredible number. Talk about that.
No, you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, this weekend, my last trip before the election will be down to the Rio Grande Valley throughout South Texas. And we've seen an incredible turnout through the Rio Grande Valley up to Laredo. Last weekend, I was out in El Paso, Texas, and I only saw 3 Joe Biden, Kamala Harris signs, and I saw no bumper stickers, but I saw plenty of Trump Pence signs. You know, the Hispanic community is waking up and understand their principles and values do not align with the Democrat Party today. But the most important thing, when you think about Texas, we have made the United States of America energy independent and a net exporter of its energy resources because of our oil and gas industry. And what Joe Biden said last week in that debate, I was sitting in Odessa, Texas, when he said that. That was like a lead balloon to hit all across Texas to say that he's going to transition us from oil. That's millions of jobs that would be lost, and that would decimate the Texas economy. So I don't think he has a hope, and you know what, out here in Texas.
We do know what. You have a very important Senate race there between John Cornyn and MJ Hegar. Obviously, Cornyn is ahead by 10 points here. How are you feeling about this race so far?
Well, we feel really good about that race. And one of the things that just came out in the Washington Examiner, MJ Hager's very own mother-in-law said she will not be supporting her because she's not a very nice person. So that's not the typical mother-in-law, hate daughter-in-law thing. There was some backstory to that. And so I don't think that MJ Hagar, who was a failed congressional candidate from 2 years ago, is going to be able to win a Senate seat. Texas is not going to have anyone that stands for the Green New Deal, that stands for gun control, and definitely wants to decimate our economy.
Now, to be fair, the mother-in-law is always a dicey relationship anyway. But talking about the election, what's your indicator? What's the indicator you're looking for in Texas? Is there one county that is right there on the edge that you think should go one way or the other, might give us a view of what the state will look like?
Well, I think when you look at North Texas, which is really where the Democrats think they can flip Texas and flip the Texas State House, between Dallas County, Collin County, Benton County, and Dallas County, Tarrant County, and Collin County. So it's North Texas. That's where primarily we're focused on. In 2018, with the O'Rourke wave, they were able to flip Tarrant County. I think we're going to bring it back into the conservative column.
Got to ask you real quick, Colonel. The Hill just came out showing that the National Guard is sending troops in to some major cities in Texas, one of those being Dallas. Are you concerned about this anticipated unrest the week of election?
Well, if you look at some of the progressive left blogs or some of these anarchist blogs, they are talking about riots and violence ensuing after the election. In the state of Texas, we're not going to allow what you see in Portland, Seattle, and definitely what you see going on right now in Philadelphia. That's not going to happen in Texas.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, thank you so much for being here, and look forward to seeing what happens in Texas next week.
You must recruit an exceptional team of congressional candidates. They must be courageous, patriotic, and absolutely fearless. Time is of the essence. The nation's future is dependent upon your success.
All right. That'll make you want to vote for someone for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Joining us now to talk about some of these key races in Texas is Congressman Brian Babin. Sir, thank you for coming on. We've got 6 tight races, 3 seats held by Democrats. 1 is an open race. Out of these races, which ones are you, I guess, the most concerned about?
Well, we've got some real tight races, and I don't think Dan Crenshaw is going to have that tough of a race. As you can see, he's a very capable man, and really enjoy that. And let me just say this: Dan has done an outstanding job at helping our colleagues raise the funds necessary. He's, you know, when it comes to social media, there's none better than Dan Crenshaw.
He's very good. Yeah.
But I will say that there are a number of races that are very, very competitive, and we don't want to lose them. Texas 22, Pete Olson's seat. This is Sheriff Troy Nels. Got a great candidate. Has been the sheriff out there in one of those counties for a number of years. He's very well thought of. Genevieve Collins running up in the Colin Allred's seat. That's Pete Sessions' old seat. I think she's got a good shot. Beth Van Dyne, great candidate as well. We've got Tony Gonzalez out in Will Hurd's seat. This is going to be very competitive. I've been trying to help all of these candidates as much as I possibly can financially, and also on the phone doing fundraisers for them and going or in person. I went out to Wesley Hunt's district about 3 or 4 days ago. Huge turnout in his district there in Cypress in Northwest Houston. He's a great candidate. I think we're going to win. I believe we're going to retain our big delegation here in the state of Texas. We've got to hang on to our state legislature as well, because that's so important to keep when the district's lines are redrawn after the census. Right. We want to be in control of that and not let the Democrats be. And so this is why I think I feel very optimistic. And then as far as the presidential race, I think people are seeing the corruption of the Biden family, of the Democratic Party. I know there's buyer's remorse going on amongst people who have voted early and now trying to figure out if there's any possible way they can change their votes. Yes. Too bad they can't. But I'm telling you, I believe that this revelation of the Biden-China connection, the Ukraine, showing Joe Biden actually bragging that he got a guy fired, a Ukrainian investigator fired by withholding $1 billion in taxpayer money. I don't believe the American people want to see this kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You talk about making sure not to lose some of these House races. There are talks that the House is going to become more and more blue potentially after this election. Are you concerned by that at all? Especially, we've seen the challenge that it's been to just even pass a stimulus bill for the American people. If the House does become more blue after the election, what would that look like?
Well, we can't pass this stimulus bill simply because Nancy Pelosi will not negotiate in good faith. There's $138 billion sitting there unused, which she will not release. She controls the House. She's the Speaker. And quite frankly, this is the reason we can't get PPP out there, which is one of the most successful programs and aspects of the CARES package. And she just won't negotiate. Well, we were willing to put it on the floor as a standalone bill, release the $138 billion, let small businesses, not only they're the owners, but their employees, give them some relief that's badly needed. And quite frankly, over the years, when I got out of the Air Force and came back from overseas in 1979, I worked for Ronald Reagan to get him elected. And at that point in time, Texas was pretty blue. And quite frankly, President, then Ronald Reagan, not president, but he did carry Texas, carried in a great landslide victory. And Texas has been red ever since. And we've had a lot of things going on, a lot of immigration coming in from California, New York, Illinois, other states. And sadly, people are fleeing the Democratic policies in those states, the high taxes, the problems that come along with that. And coming down to Texas, where we have low taxes, and bringing their Democrat voting habits down here, and that's really a very
doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it really
doesn't make any sense at all. Sir, I want to ask you. Here's a headline talking about asking why the GOP is hold on Texas is loosening. That the GOP is losing control of the state. That this is a state that maybe not this year, but soon will turn blue. There is a shift happening. What do you attribute to that shift?
Well, I think just what I said, people immigrating from other states, bringing their Democratic voting habits. We've had an open border for decades. Neither party's president would ever secure the border in the right way. We have a 14th Amendment that is interpreted as an anchor baby, birthright citizenship. They come over here illegally, have a baby, and that's their anchor baby that's now a citizen. And this is a real problem, and I think this has hurt Texas. But I'm not giving up on Texas, folks. Let me tell you, we've lost the metropolitan areas. There's no question about that. The big cities are now voting blue for all the reasons that I gave. But rural Texas is still strong. We saw rural Texas come to the rescue of Senator Ted Cruz, and I think we're still going to see that. I see an enormous amount of energy and excitement for President Trump. The man has kept every single campaign promise he's made. The wall, he stood up for the First and Second Amendment. He's lowered taxes. He is tried single-handedly, essentially with executive orders, secured our border.
He's done a tremendous amount, sir. And yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on. He talks about it at the rallies. He's got a lot to brag about. Congressman Brian Babin, thank you so much for your time.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.